Get ready to transform how you communicate and market, not only in business, but in your life. This is Marketing Matters. For more information on today's show and other topics, visit ryansauers.com. Here's your host, best-selling author and national speaker, Ryan Sauers.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another Marketing Matters with Ryan Sauers. I'm your host, and we're broadcasting live here on Business Radio X on every episode, as you know, of Marketing Matters. We talk business, marketing, sales, communications, and much more. But let me start by asking you to support those who care for this show. That's Athens Orthopedic Clinic. They take super care of their patients in 13 locations. Visit them at AthensOrthopedicClinic.com. And also the heart of what matters, helping people overcome grief, and so much more one step at a time. Visit them at theheartofwhatmatters.com. But now moving on to bigger and better things, I have my co-host, as always, Jane Bishop, owner of Take the Next Step, JaneBishop.live. Jane, how are you today?
Oh, I'm doing great, Ryan. Excited to be here as always.
We have two amazing guests, don't we? And I brought a tennis ball, but that's for later in
I brought a football.
I know. Well, that explains
I'm just
a lot
saying.
about that. Okay.
I'm just saying.
But we have Jason Campbell, SEC legend, Auburn quarterback, former NFL quarterback, and I'm going to let y'all say hello. And we have David Greene, UGA quarterback, SEC legend, former NFL quarterback, both in business now. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Good to be here, guys. Yeah.
All right, so real quick, let's start with Jason. Now, Jason, you've recently launched several new companies. So I've been kidding you. You need to get back on the sidelines. If you're listening, we get a lot of listens. He just said if his knee's all right, he'll hold the clipboard. Yeah. So I just want a little cut of that. That's all I want. But, no, in all seriousness, congratulations on your new business ventures, and just tell people what you're up to these days in business.
Well, I was in coaching when I first stopped playing football, so that took up a lot of my time. My nephews and everything was live in the area, so it gave me an opportunity to be around them and kind of help groom them as they continue to grow. And then all of a sudden, one of the kids on my AAU basketball team I was coaching, his dad came up to me after the season. The season was almost over. He was like, "Hey, you ever thought about going into business?" And I was just like, I've been thinking about it a lot. I just been waiting on the right time, the right opportunity. Right. And he was like, well, I've been doing, in the IT business for almost 20 years. And he was just like, I feel like with you playing in D.C. and with your connection at Auburn, that this is something that you can be called to do, and you can utilize your relationships that you made throughout those years to build your brand. And I was thinking about it. I said, it makes a lot of sense. And then he kind of put some things together. I went home, thought about it. Talked to my financial advisor about it, and I was super excited about it. It's a new phase of life.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So a lot of guys lose themselves after they play football. But, like David and myself and everything, we've kind of continued to try to move forward. We know it's something better than just football. So I started that 4.5 months ago. It's called QBJC Digital. You can find it at QBJCdigital.com. We are staffing and recruiting company for IT companies. We do staffing augmentation, we do direct hiring, and we're also getting into the commercial and government contracting. So I'm kind of back and forth from Atlanta to D.C. at least once or twice a month.
You missed those travel days being on the airplane, didn't you?
I tell you what, I missed the travel days with the peanuts and the sneakers that they get on there.
And cookies. The cookies is where it's at.
If they have peanuts, though, a lot of people, they don't serve peanuts. I like the peanuts. Well, let jump into David. David obviously been such a big part of Atlanta, and you, David, bring us up to speed in your world of what you're doing these days. Congratulations, expanding the family.
Yeah,
sure, you're running on adrenaline.
Yeah. So we just had our fourth child, our first girl, though, by the way. She's about a month old now. So
she'll be well loved.
So I've got a permanent twitch in my eyes, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
It's actually, I've been in the commercial insurance business for right at 10 years now, which is crazy because time flies.
Yeah.
I was a risk management insurance major at Georgia. And when I got done playing ball, I knew I wanted to get into the business. So I started meeting with a lot of different companies. Went with a group called Seacrest Partners at the time. They were headquartered out of Savannah. And then about 3 years ago, we merged with the groups out of Sterling Risk Advisors, John Miller and Bartley Miller, who was one of my offensive linemen at Georgia.
Oh, that's right. You played with Bartley, yeah.
That's right. And so we teamed up together, and now it's Sterling Seacrest Partners. And it's so much fun. to watch how the agency has grown throughout the years. Right now, we're the largest independent agency actually in the state of Georgia. We're right around 200 employees now.
Well, I butchered that question. John Miller was on the show, as I was telling you a few weeks ago. He's a good friend of mine. And I asked him, I said, so you're the biggest private insurance company in the country? And he's like,
state of Georgia.
Not the country.
Calm down, Ryan. Calm down. Calm down.
He was like,
you said it, not me.
Ryan,
did I write that on my notes? And I'm like, my bad.
That was the day you were on drugs.
That is true. That's when I had the sinus issues.
Prescription drugs.
Prescription drugs. Yeah, it was at 50%. It was at 50%. But no, y'all have had tremendous growth, and something he said in the show, I think you would echo, is John was articulating the brand and said, people say, how did you get a job with Sterling Seacrest? Yeah. Because it's that high regarded, and you should be excited to be a part of that.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies take this same approach too. The key is just hiring good people. Mm-hmm. If you can find a way to hire good people, even if you don't even know exactly which role they're going to fill, folks that kind of believe in the vision and fit the culture. And John, in in our leadership team has really done a good job of setting a clear direction for where we're going and creating a good culture.
Well, let me ask you a question, and Jane will have plenty of questions. All right, so both of you guys, as I've been thinking about quarterbacks, quarterbacks, I'm working on my leadership doctorate, so quarterback really has to know everything or should know everything, what everybody's doing. How is that translated for you in starting your business and in insurance and in sales? We're all in sales and building relationships. Has the ability, not just being in competitive sports, I have 3 daughters, they're all in competitive sports, everybody didn't get a ribbon. If you're not at practice, you're not going to probably start. These are great lessons that I think are lost on a lot of today's kids. But being a quarterback in particular, has it given you a little bit of an advantage of knowing other people's things and thinking, building your own business, of what you're doing, or does any position in sports help?
Yeah, I believe so. I think playing the quarterback position, you always got to learn all your teammates. You're a quarterback. Every receiver is not the same. There's all different kind of personalities.
I'll stay away from that subject. You know what I was going to say. I won't say it. It'll be on ESPN later.
So it's all kind of different personalities you got to learn how to deal with. Some guys you can get onto them and, they can take it well. Some guys you have to kind of put your arms around them and show them that you love them up and for them to listen to you. So I think for me, being in the business world has taught me a lot about how to deal with atmosphere and how to deal with people, because in the business, it can be just as cutthroat as it is in football. And there's a lot of highs and lows, and you just have to – what is done for me is you got to stay steady through the whole process. Mm-hmm. David understands this. In games, there's highs and lows in the games. If you have an interception, you better be quickly put it behind you and be able to move on to the next play. And I think it's the same way in business. If you have a hiccup, you just don't fall down on it. You just pick yourself back up and keep going. And I think that helped me a lot in my leadership position as far as being a chairman, of my company and everything. So, and even when I go to these business meetings, people are really in tune and want to hear from you. Mm-hmm. And when you talk to them, it's not like they talking to you as a football player, but it's kind of like they want to hear things of how you work together as a team. Because in the business side of things, it's a team atmosphere. And they want to see, how did you get everyone to be on the same page, running the same play? And I think if you carry that over, it's the same thing. Everyone better be on the same page in order for your business to grow. If not, it'll crumble. You hit the nail on the head. I think that's the number one thing sports does, especially in the quarterback position, is you got 11 guys on the field. They all have individual goals and agendas, and you've got to come together because there's only one ball. And you got to make sure everybody's kind of rowing in the same direction. And that's challenging because you do got a lot of different personalities, people from a lot of different backgrounds, got to come together for one common goal. And it's no different in the business world, because I tell you, every company I meet with, if I ask them what's the number one challenge in your business, it's not the tariffs, it's not this or that, it's managing people and staff. It's the greatest challenge that anybody has, because there's so many different personalities and people view things different ways and they got different agendas. And that was I think that's a huge leg up that we had, because we understood kind of what people were wanting individually, but we had to find a way to kind of reach them in a way that drags them back into the team setting.
As well as deal with the obstacles known as the defense on the football field, how to run their routes and achieve the team objectives with all the obstacles. So how does the defense on football translate into some examples of challenges in the business world? What's one example?
Well, I would say this, at least from in the insurance perspective, is a lot of the challenges is making sure that the buyers kind of you understand what their personality is, what are some trigger points for them. What I always like to do is make sure they truly understand the value that we're bringing versus, hey, you know what, here's a price and here's a premium. I want to make sure they fully understand the different things we're going to offer, from reading policy language to the services we provide throughout the year. I want to make sure they value those things as well, outside of me just coming in and saying, here's a policy and a premium, take it or not.
Well, we talked about that the other day when John was on the show, because he said, in your case, you're kind of selling a promise. Well, you are too. I mean, you're going to solve my staffing needs, but to a certain degree, until you see it, it's like being a 3 or 4 star recruit. Hopefully that translates to the college level from high school, because we think it will, right? But it doesn't mean it will, because. But I guess let me just say one thing. The number one thing, Jane is a coach, a life coach, does so much with coaching with people. Is one of the most respected. I have the highest level of respect for her, what she does in working with teams. But that is the number one thing in my business, is dealing with the people. More than anything else, is if you can get people and you can have people encouraged, and you can have people when they're getting sad or getting frustrated, and you can kind of pat them on the back and pull them in the right direction. That's the magical teams in business or in sports. However, and I want to allude to, we all see the sports stories of the people that, make it about themselves, and we see this in business too. And that really distracts from the team goals. I mean, at some point, I guess you have to cut bait. You just can't keep those people there forever. But those are great insights. And Jane, I want to make sure you have plenty of time.
Well, I think Jason was going to jump in with another thought. So let's give it back to you, Jason.
Yeah, I was just going to add on what David was saying. I think the whole thing is, for us, is what's the end goal? You're dealing in business. It's like, okay, what's the end goal, and how do we get there? And it's like it's a step process. So each week you're either taking classes or you're doing different programs to build towards the end goal. And you have to hire people that fit the right company and everything. If you don't fit the right company, if you don't fit the company needs, then it can become a distraction. And it's the same thing in the team. Now, when we're looking at a defense, Jane asked about a defense earlier. When you're looking at a defense, you're trying to figure out how can you dissect the defense to score a touchdown. Mm-hmm. So it's like doing as a doctor doing surgery, or as a coach, studying film. As a quarterback, you study film with the coach, and you study film on your own, and you find out who's the weakest link of the defense and how to attack that defense to get touchdowns.
Does that give you all a business advantage to think? Because number one, I'm in sales for a living, so I don't worry so much what other people are doing, but I'm always thinking of like, all right, I've watched all these things, and here's the mythology. I'm going to go look at stuff, but doing my homework. Mm-hmm. I mean, has been in the film room and have that mindset and scanning the field and go and throw the ball out of bounds or whatever. Does that help you in business?
Well, I think the key is you got to have a plan. Right. So, like when you're attacking a defense, what's the plan of attack?
Okay.
What's the matchups? Like how do we want to get there? Same thing in business. Mm-hmm. In my world, it's how do we add value? Okay, so I can't just come in there and say, here's your exposures, here's your quote. I need to really try to understand their business first. What makes them tick? What keeps them up at night? A lot of times I come in there and say, hey, what keeps you up at night? Mm-hmm. And then I'll try to figure out what's important to them. Because you can meet with 2 business owners in the same industry, and they fear very different things. Yep. And so the worst thing you can do is just assume that you know. You need to come in there and really get to understand a person and what makes them tick.
Both of you were successful in college and NFL. You had your successes there, in different ways. So what is something that has been an unexpected surprise in the business world since you have left the sports world and now transitioned into the business world?
Oh, man, I would probably say
good question.
Jealousy and envy.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah. Like ever since I started my company, there were some that you felt like they had your best interests, but in detail, they were trying to build their own self up to branch off of you and then kind of leave you. Right. Mm-hmm. You have to differentiate, and you learn how to make hard decisions, and you have to know when to cut bait. Okay. And I think that's been the biggest thing for me that kind of shocked me. Is like, man, it doesn't change. Even in the NFL, you could be sitting in the locker room, and in the middle of the week, the guy's locker next to you is empty, and you're like, what happened?
Yeah.
They cut him. So it's the same thing when you're in the business where, like, you can't let your emotions get the best of you. There are going to have to be some hard decisions. There's sometimes you got to let people go. There's sometimes you got to tell people, like, no, this is something we can't do. But it's a way that you go about it. But I've also understand that if you let your emotions get involved in business decisions, you can get yourself in trouble.
Yeah.
Oh, emotions are great
Jen
information
loves that.
centers because they're
That's
well,
her specialty.
you know, our emotional
And she's going to get
intelligence.
excited. I saw it coming.
saw
I
it
got that
coming.
tennis
Got
ball.
that song, got the tennis
I
ball.
got the tennis ball. Why? We still don't know. But
Well,
I'm like, Matt, you know, we got
let me
it.
just make one observation before David comments. Our emotions are intended to inform us. And what happens when we don't learn how to manage them, then we get ourselves in trouble.
Right.
So that's all I'll say about that. David.
Yeah, I was just going to say just how challenging it would be, because I think a lot of times, and most people when they think of insurance brokers, they think, man, they got to have a good golf game because they're on a golf course all the time.
Yeah, right.
But it was a real challenge and an eye opener when I got into the business. There's a lot of folks I had good close relationships with, and I was like, man, this is going to be a layup.
Yeah.
I'm going to walk in here and get the business. Well, you start talking about the way
Moving
people make their
stuff,
money,
yeah.
and this is how
Yeah.
they get paid. They don't move that easy. You've truly got to find a way
To earn that.
to add value to them. And so a lot of times when I meet with former players that are coming out and transitioning to the business world, regardless of what industry you go in, I keep going back to that word, but you got to find a way to add value to people. People are not just going to do business with you because you threw touchdowns 3 years ago. You know, you're becoming less and less. You got to figure out how can you help them.
I'll tell you a true story. You know, I started over, I think I shared both you guys individually about 9-10 years ago, completely started because I want to do all these different things. Jason's smiling at somebody out there. I don't know who it is. I
got
feel
a
that
fan
they
club out.
whatever's happening, I can't see it. So do not have me scare me. I don't even know Jason
That's one of the kids'
scary me.
parents I coached. this
All
summer.
right. Jason got fans outside the studio. I don't know what
Now
he's,
back to our
all right,
regularly
back to our
scheduled
regular
program.
schedule. But whatever I was talking about. But no, and what was
You were telling a true story. That's
That's-
as far
well,
as you got. So which true story were you telling?
No, there was a story I was building off what
Adding value.
adding value.
True value.
True value.
Is it circling the room? It hasn't come back yet.
I don't remember.
It hasn't come back yet. Well,
I got
let-
hit
was
ahead too
something
many
good.
times. You
Well,
can
Right,
cut
that's
that.
the studio.
There's
Let's
a lot
go-
of tennis.
Let's go to the value statement while it's circling. Let's go to the value because both of you mentioned value in a different way. When you were in the NFL, when you were in college, that you were the brand of the team that you were on, either the institution or the NFL team. So how is adding value helping you establish your own brand now in your business?
A lot. Because I always tell guys when you play at Auburn, you play at Georgia, if you're there for 4 years, you are renting your seats. And what I mean by that, you got 4 years to show what you can do while you're renting. And I said what you do as a player and what you do, how you handle yourself is more important than what you do on the field. I said because no one going to care about how much money you made or, you know, your accolades and everything if you're a butthole.
Yeah.
You know, when you finish playing ball, you're going to be maybe late 20s, early 30s, late 30s. So the Lord's willing, you got all this life to live, what you going to do with it? But if you was a butthole to those people while you was playing, they going to remember that.
Oh, yeah.
So then when you get into their world, they going to remember, oh, well, you the guy that – but if you a guy that cares yourself with, you treat everybody right, try to treat everybody the same, and you play ball, you try to do everything, and you build relationships along the way, and positive relationships, people remember that, and they want to be a part of what you're doing, and they want to get to know you. And I think if you're going to build your brand, you never know who you're talking to, so always treat everybody the same, you know, and treat them the right way, because that may be someone down the road, you don't think about it now, but 5 years from now, they may be having something going on that you want to be a part of, but they can remember the conversation that you had.
That's
Yeah.
good. How about you, David?
Well, it's interesting because you mentioned it earlier, Ryan. You know, we're really selling a promise when we're selling these policies, and we can go years and years down the road, and nobody thinks anything of it. Then when you finally get that phone call, and somebody calls and say, "We've had a major claim," they don't know what to do, but they need your help, and you're there for them, and you help them solve the problem and help them get through a really stressful time. That's a huge opportunity for us. So when times are really, really tough for certain people, that's really that's really our time to shine. And if you do a great job there and you're able to help people, word travels. Because next thing you know, their friends down the street when they're playing golf with, next thing you know, your phone starts ringing from some of their friends. And it's just rewarding. I mean, to be able to just help people out. I mean, insurance is boring to most people, and nobody wants it until you need it.
Until you need it,
Until
exactly.
you need it. And it's great when somebody needs it, and you're there to help them, and you got a whole team there to help them through a tough time. That's rewarding for me.
All right, it came back to me. So that's what happens. Let me tell you, when you've had, and I didn't even play football as a kid, but let's assume I'd had some concussions. I did hit a lot of soccer headers. All right, that's all I got. That and the tennis ball. All right, seriously, when I did start over about a decade ago, David, well, that's what I was going to say, is I made the assumption that I'd go out because I had treated people well, and I had a lot of networking relationships. But when I realized I wanted to get hired to speak, or when I wanted to get all the things I wanted to do, people were like, that sounds great. But we already have somebody to do that. And it took me years and years of grinding to say, how do you become a speaker? Well, first you speak for free a lot. Then you get a little stipend or honorarium. Then you do this. Then you do that. But there was no shortcut. It was just complete grinding. And I had thought, kind of like you said, you played football, got a lot of relationships. Well, I had a lot of relationships in Atlanta, but not enough to pay the bills. And what I quickly learned also, no matter how creative, no matter how much we prepare, there was just nothing. Rennie Kern said it on the show a few weeks ago. He said no one's going to outwork him. And I still take that this day, meaning that no one's going to outwork me, meaning that if I see something in front of me, I'm going to make sure my family time's correct and, my spiritual, my professional time, but I'm also going to not be beat by somebody by being lazy. And I think I'd like to know y'all's thoughts. I see a lot of businesses now. Economy's pretty good. You can kind of get some business, just by being around, but we also know that it'll retract at some point. And it's the guys that still grind, still working hard, right?
Absolutely. There's really no shortcut. I mean, at least in my industry, you got to pay your dues. And a lot of times you're not going to walk into a room and somebody's going to hire you on the spot, because the people that will hire you on the spot will fire you on the spot as well. Right?
Something wrong with that situation.
It's true. So what you really want to do is make a good impression, be disciplined enough to have a plan to stay in touch with them periodically, or if there's something out there that you feel like can add value to them, you send it to them just periodically, and then you just want to be that next card that pops up. So if somebody does mess up, you want to have touched them somewhere within the last you want to be able to touch them every now and then, so when something does happen, they're willing to pick up the phone and call you. Because early on in my career, I wasn't as disciplined enough at staying in touch with people, and then I'd figure out they moved their business elsewhere. I'm going, hey, why didn't he call me? Well, I hadn't called him in 2 years. I wasn't on his radar screen. And
relationship.
Yeah, you got to, I think we all want to feel like, hey, this guy knows what I do, he'll call me. But if you don't stay in contact with him or her, then chances are you're out of their mind as well.
Well, let me share something. I think we all can struggle with this a little bit. I know I do. You want to build up stuff. I want more and more listens to this show. Well, there's a fine balance between what comes off as brag posting and then branding, right? And so branding is saying, hey, I got two great guys in here. People want to listen to what you guys got to say, want to listen to what Jane has to say. I'll just point at that. Not as interested in what I have to say. But no, in all seriousness, that they so you want to put this stuff out, but I also see some people promoting to the point where it's like, all right, dude, you posted on every platform every day about what you've done. And I've seen over the years of 10 years, because I've been on social media for 10, 11 years before everybody else knew what it was. I've seen people do it right. Some people just hard, you get the hard LinkedIn. Y'all get these, you don't even know who the person is. And they're like, we want to see if you want to spend 15 minutes for coffee. I'm like, I don't know who you even are. But the basic shortcuts you're speaking of, there are no shortcuts. Right. There are no shortcuts of building a relationship properly. LinkedIn, et cetera, is a tool to maybe get somebody's email, to maybe then text them or call them or meet with them. But it's not going to take the place of a relationship. Do you guys agree with what you're doing?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think, like I told my business partner, I said the first thing we have to do first is build a foundation right.
Right.
And build a foundation right. It may take months. It may take half a year. I said, but at least the foundation part is right. So when we get these bids and these deals, they know that we have everything in row, that we're lined up correctly, and that we don't have to turn down things because we're not qualified or not ready, So let's make sure we have everything done beforehand. And then another thing is, like you're saying, it's just saying what's their value, because even in staffing and recruiting, you're involved with competition. You're trying to partner with these companies. What's going to make a company want to partner with you rather than another company? And like David was saying, a lot of it is try to stay in contact with people as much as possible. Because some people get a card and then they go home. If they got kids, the card get lost. So kind of shoot them an email as soon as you meet them. You get home, you settle down, shoot them an email. Say, hey, great to meet you. Pass along the information. If you ever need anything or looking for someone, just keep us in mind. Just something real quick and easy. That way they can kind of put the face with the email and with the person that they just met an hour or 2 hours ago.
Yeah, and it'd be just like the other night. I got a call from a local high school, and they just said, "Hey, look, this is a backward compliment. We wanted somebody that kids weren't at the school, but the other people we needed, a couple of them are in Washington D.C. Politicians, whatever. They were like, they can't do it." So your name came out. I'm like,
You were number 4 on the list.
I'm like, I mean, basically, it says, I'm not going to take your money. I'll come help the kids. Let's help the high school kids and give them an inspirational talk. And I said, look, I can do it that day, but it was the most backward comment I've ever seen. I'm like,
And he didn't even realize what he was doing.
Yeah, that's right. His emotional intelligence was maybe.
I knew it. She's a friend. She's a friend of
self-awareness.
mine, and I looked at the calendar, and I'm like, I can go give him some help out. But the way they said it, she was trying to say we didn't want to have to pull you in, but I was like, nope.
That's like Ryan.
What's that?
Yeah.
You know, it's for people that's single. They've gone on a couple of dates and they didn't work and used the fallback date.
On the fallback date. I've been married so long, Jason. I'd be a bad guy on a date because I'd be like, "Now we do Dutch now, or do I pay, or do you pay? Is that going to offend you?" I'm like, "My bad. I'll just go play some tennis."
Well, back to our regularly scheduled
Yes,
program.
well,
Yes,
that's
you
what
know,
we do.
I
If
know.
it's not fun, no one's going to listen.
We have to have some fun.
No, that's right. I mean,
Well, I'm hearing from David and Jason. If you're listening, those of you that are listening to the show, you're hearing some consistencies. You're hearing some of your core values, integrity, hard work, relationships. How do you keep yourself aligned with those core values?
That's the key. Like I said, the main thing is stay true to yourself. You know, I always say if you try to do something or be someone that you're not, it'll show. You know, I always say your actions speak so loud, I can hardly hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you don't have to talk so much. Just let your actions show what you're doing. And I think for us, that aspect, it was the same way in college. You know, you go through things, you hear things, but then you just stay true to what you believe in and what you know is ahead of you. If you have a dream, keep the dream. Nobody said if you got a dream, it's going to be easy.
That's right.
Yeah, like keep the dream, but go through the roller coaster ride and go through the highs and the lows. You know, the lows are there to build character and to make you more mature, make you more aware of things. If you just go through things and didn't ever experience, a hiccup, then how you going to grow? You know, that's why I always tell people, get out of your comfort zone. You know, don't just continue to do the same things you do over and over day by day and expect a different result. Like, start to put yourself out there, do things differently, engage. A lot of people want handouts. I say be the person that people are asking you for the handout, by getting out there and making yourself available.
That's what I got the other night.
Yeah,
Yep.
I would say in business as well, that's why culture is so important. If you really want to build a business around certain values, you got to be very intentional about making sure those values, that everyone in the company knows those values, and you hire people that have those same values. And I think the other thing is you want to make sure that your personal values and your business values are aligned as well, because it's very hard to be somebody different, during a workday than to turn off be somebody else during a day. So I think even when you're hiring people or you're looking for a job, you want to make sure that you go into a culture where those those business values and personal values line up.
That's great. That's good stuff for our listeners, especially those that are having challenges transitioning out of the corporate sector into the business sector, because that's their dream that they're keeping alive. And let's just kind of segue, Ryan. Jason, you've got a new certification program that you're working on. Tell us about that. The Red Hat
the
certification program?
Yeah, Red Hat certification program. So right now, me and my business partner are going on there to continue to better ourselves within the company. And the more you can know, the more you can learn. That's when they show interest, and that's when they know, like, okay, you're serious about this, and you're putting yourself out there to learn. You can never know enough.
Right.
And especially with me, he's been in the business 15, 20 years. I'm playing catch up, but there's things that he learns from me, like how to deal with people, that I learned through professional sports. And there's things I'm learning from him in the business side of how to deal with contracts, how to deal with percentages, and how you go about asking for the contract, how you go about partnering. And so I've learned so much over these last 4.5 months, and I'm interested in learning more, because 5 years from now I have a goal, but I'm trying to chop one piece off at a time. A lot of people like to chop the top off first, and they're like, no, you just got to go at layers. And what I mean by that is, when you go at layers, is you have a building program, and you can't get to the top. Everybody wants the instant results now. We live in an instant world.
That's our culture. Just
that's a culture.
snap
Everybody
your
wants
fingers.
instant. It's like you want to snap your finger, or you want to be paid before you do the job.
Right.
I get that a lot of times, where people want to be paid before you do the job. I'm just like, huh? Like it doesn't work that way. You put the work in first, and then you reach the reward later.
One of the rewarding things about business in general as well, and Jason, I think, just mentioned it, is it's like when you play football, you don't want to have 11 quarterbacks on the field, right? You want to have offensive linemen, got different skills than a quarterback versus the running backs. And like in Jason's standpoint, and really most businesses, you want people that have different skill sets, right? Like in my world, I'm in a business, I'm in developing, producing business, but we also need people that can service that business and really enjoy just handling the day-to-day contact.
Absolutely.
We have people that in our legal department that just review contracts every day.
Absolutely.
That would be
Yeah,
I would not want to do that. Okay,
That is not part of your core values.
but what's fun is when it all comes together and everybody does their part and uses their strengths to the advantage for the whole team. That's when it gets fun. Is when you can kind of work as a team to make it all come together.
It's like crossing the goal line.
Yes.
But you know, it's so true. I was saying the other day, doing this doctorate in leadership, and you can break it down into about 4 or 5 pieces. But at the end, if everybody has a clear vision of where they're going. It's relationships. It's trust. It's good communications. Hey, we all make mistakes. Is how we own up to those mistakes and move forward and don't make excuses. It's good people. In the book Good to Great, they always say get the right people on the right seats in the bus. But one of the things in that book, if you ever read it, by who's it, Maxwell, John, I can't remember who wrote the book. You see what starts happening when you have your kids get older.
This morning, right?
I don't know, man. But that keeps it real. But anyway, I'll come back. It's Good to Great by Jim Collins. But one of the things that hit me in that book was says if you have the right people, you can go into any business. You could drive your bus anywhere, and I agree with that. Because to your point, David, there are people that they really do. I had a 150-person printing company. I had some people were sitting in accounting all day. Some people were sitting running machinery all day, and all those things. I didn't have any skills except sales and marketing and going out and building relationships. And they didn't like that. They were like, we would never want to do that. Yeah. We don't know. You just go do what you do. But that's magical when you see people and you do something special. And that's where I always use sports, because I love sports, in business. And teaching analogies. The problem is if people don't like sports, they're like, can you give me something else? I'm like, sorry, that's all I got. That's all I got.
The secret sauce is if everybody in each of those departments feels valued.
Right.
That's the key.
And they're all equally important.
Because if one group gets all the reward of the credit, then the other ones feel slighted. But if you're intentional about making sure they all feel valued and they're all a part of the success, then you've got some good stuff.
One of the top 3 missing gaps in the workforce today that continues to be over the last, I think it's 4 or 5 years now. One of the top 3 is staff are not engaged where they work because they don't feel valued.
Totally.
That bottom line.
Well, and I'll just say this, the producers or the salespeople, whatever, a lot of them, you go out and get the big fish, and they get the limelight. And a lot of companies I do consulting with are like, these guys get all the accolades, like a quarterback or wide receiver. Right. You don't hear a lot about an offensive lineman unless he gets called for holding or a false start. Right. You really don't. Once in a while, maybe he made a good block. It kind of, if they do their job, you don't notice. But if you don't have a person collecting your money or getting the stuff paid or servicing your account, it doesn't matter how good you are in building relationships. It ain't going to work, right?
Right. Like I said, you don't want division.
No.
Division crumbles everything. And you'll see it in sports. You'll see it in business. Like, I hate to, go to it, but if you look at Antonio Brown's situation.
That's why I let you said it, not me.
Just say, you look at his situation in Oakland. Was it more about the Raiders or more about him?
About him.
And I felt like when you watched the show on HBO, it became more about him and the things that he had going on, and the Raiders looking at it like, okay, this is becoming a big distraction to the team, and like, how can we get on the same page? And if we can't get on the same page, then we have to cut ties.
Right.
And that's why the tie was cut, because they looked at it like, okay, we're a brand that's about to move to Las Vegas.
Yeah, it is. It sure is.
We need
Tell
to
me every week when I'm there.
Right. We need to be moving to Vegas with positivity.
And not a sideshow.
And not a show that happens and then it takes away from the big brand, which is the Oakland Raiders.
Well, you saw that, and just we're gonna go a few minutes over there, but you saw, don't know these people personally, but the Lonzo Ball and his family, the basketball, and when you become a distraction, I want to relate this back to business. I've had people become distractions. They wanted to say, I deserve more money, I deserve more of this, Ryan, I deserve more of that. I'm like, you are taking so much of my time. And what I learned 20 years later was, and Jane, you'd appreciate this, I spent so little time going and telling my great performers. I always tell them good job, but I didn't I just took them for granted. They were such good performers. I'm like, great job, man, way to go. Always encouraging. But I spent so much time, like a kid acting out. If you're one of your kids is more than the others, you're spending so much time disciplining the problem. And at some point you go, if I got a C- performer, I'm detracting from the entire team. I need to make a change. And I value my people greatly, but at a point, you look at that and go, this isn't worth it. They can be all the talent in the world. I'm not doing this anymore. They're pulling the team apart, which is going to affect the performance, right?
There's no question. I mean, and it makes it a little bit easier as the company grows and you get bigger, because normally one person ain't going to disrupt the whole thing. It's a little bit harder when you're a small company.
Yeah, it is.
Because somebody gets out of line. It's like, hey, I really need you to step up here because we're not going to survive. As you get bigger, it's a little bit easier to manage that, because you can say, hey, you're either going to be about the culture or you're out of here.
Exactly. And that's key. That's important. What's one, what if somebody's tuning in and the last 2 minutes of the show, what's one lesson learned that you would like our listeners to hear?
I'd probably say never think you're bigger than the company.
That's
because
good.
a lot of people always think like they need me so much that I can force
That's
my
true.
way on things.
It's true.
And it's easier for them to get rid of you than to start a new company.
No one's irreplaceable.
Okay,
Right.
that's good. How
No
about
one's
you, David?
irreplaceable.
If I would say, if you're going through a tough time right now, but you feel like you're at the right job, but it's not going fast enough, sometimes you just got to keep grinding, because sometimes, success is right around a corner, but you can't see it.
Yeah.
And you don't know it.
You got to trust
And
the
I think
process.
there's too many people that have jumped ship too quickly. If you're at a good spot and you're around good people and you got a good job, but you're just not performing the way you would like, you're not catching on as fast, I would say stick with it and just keep really grinding away at it, because I do think there a lot of times people they move too quickly when success is not that far behind them, and it's tough. But a lot of times you appreciate the good times more when you're in the valley sometime, and you learn a lot because you have to when you're in the valley. You got to find a way up on that mountaintop somehow.
Man, one thing
that's
though,
good.
but when I see somebody's resume, and I've seen they've moved jobs every 2 years, I throw it in the trash can. I mean, because I don't want to be the ninth guy going, oh, I bet you're going to make your career job here. Because that's what they're doing. They're saying there's something better out there, something better out there, something better out there. I can get $5,000 more here. And sometimes when you're with a really good company and you're with a really good company, then you just got to figure out a way to improve your skill set or work harder. But I just personally, I can hear every day when I'm doing coaching or consulting excuse after excuse after excuse. I'm like, okay, I understand. We all got 24 hours a day. But what are you going to do about it? I mean, you're not telling me how you're going to be a part of the solution.
It's your choice.
The
It's your choice.
The people that really tend to grind and work hard and try to find ways to roll up their sleeves and get better, those are typically the ones that end up being more successful
are.
because they're not afraid to
Yes.
do the dirty work. And it's not always about, am I going to get paid for this extra work? You're just trying to solve the problem.
Both you guys have done volunteer coaching, right? And how many people have you seen on the sidelines? I've seen in my life where they're complaining constantly. And one time I had about 12, 13 years ago, I was coaching my oldest daughter at that time. She's at Georgia Tech now. And he was complaining about playing time. This was wrecked. This wasn't in some advanced thing. It was all even time. And somehow I'd missed getting the kid in equal time. Had just one of me. No assistant coach at that time. And he's in my ear. And I said, you know what? I could use an assistant coach. He said, oh, I don't want to coach. I just was telling you what you didn't get right. Look, man, be part of the solution or get out of my ear. And I know you guys volunteer your time. I want to say we got David Greene, former Bulldog great with Sterling Seacrest Partners here. We have Jason Campbell, Auburn legend. Both of them played in the NFL. Both of them great guys. Let me say something real quick and then we'll close it out. As a reminder, you can listen to this show live broadcast on the 2nd and 4th Thursday of each month at 1 o'clock Eastern. Just go to visit businessradiox.com, select the Gwinnett Studio, and click on Listen Live. And if you can't join us live and you're an Amazon, Netflix streamer type, this show and past shows are easy to find 24/7. Simply go to businessradiox.com, select the Gwinnett Studio, and then click on Marketing Matters.
Hey, Ryan, we need to let them give their contact information.
I do.
their
Yeah, we want to do
website
that. So I
again.
want you guys to kind of wrap us up before I close this out. Tell us how they can find. We will start with David. How can he find you? Thank you for your time today, David. And then just tell them how they can find you and any closing thoughts you got.
Yeah, no, it's great to be on the show. We got our office right here in Peachtree Corner, so excited about that. We got some Gwinnett presence as well as Vinings and down in Savannah as well. If we can ever help anybody with their business insurance needs, both health insurance, some of the personal lines insurance, and the area I specialize is in the commercial, so your property, general liability, workers' comp, yada, 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 that kind of deal. My number is 404-602-5675. That's the office line. And you can certainly look us up at sterlingseacrestpartners.com as well, and be glad to see if we can help.
Thank you, David. Jason?
Great job, David.
What's that? You like that, huh?
He said he'd like some insurance.
He likes some insurance.
J. Cam, I got one policy left. Your name on it.
Yeah, that's what he wants.
Hey, you're right. Hey, for me, you can find me on Twitter at capital JC Laura capital JCAM _17. You can find me on Instagram at jcampbell17. You can also find me at qbjcdigital.com if you have anything you want to go on there and put. You can also, so that's our email. As far as my phone number, I usually give out my emails because we check our emails every day together. So that's the way you can reach us. If you're out and you're in staffing and you're in recruiting, or someone is looking for a job in the IT and you feel like you have all the credentials, just go to qbjcdigital.com and send us an email, and we'll look forward to try to reach out to you. And I'm also on LinkedIn at Jason Campbell on LinkedIn.
Well, before Ryan wraps us up, I want to thank you guys for not only what you displayed when you were in the sports world, but what you continue to display in the business world. It's got to be a great encouragement to people to know that it can be done. So thanks for what you're representing.
Oh, thank you.
Guys.
Appreciate it.
And these guys are very humble and operate with integrity, so I concur. So, well, thank you for joining us on Marketing Matters with Ryan Sauers here on Business Radio X. Please support those, again, who support and care for this show. Athens Orthopedic Clinic, taking care of patients over 13 locations. AthensOrthopedicClinic.com. And the heart of what matters, helping people overcome their grief one step at a time. The heart of whatmatters.com. Thank you, David, for being here. Thank you, Jason, for being here. And thanks for our studio for making it a great show. For my co-host, Jane Bishop, thank you, Jane.
Glad to be here, Ryan. Thank you.
Thank you. This is Ryan Sauers. Folks, you've been listening to Marketing Matters with Ryan Sauers. And until next time, make your marketing matter.